السيدات والسادة، يسعدني أن أقدم لكم الآن المهندس أحمد الكساسبة، وهو معماري وباحث من الأردن يعمل في دائرة الآثار العامة في عمان، وهو أحد مؤسسي مبادرة مكان التي توظف التقنيات الرقمية في صون التراث. سيقوم بتقديم لنا اليوم دراسة حالة ضمن برنامج حول تطبيق التوأم الرقمي في مواقع التراث. جدير بالذكر أنه إحنا هذا العام ولأول مرة فتحنا التقديم أونلاين للمبادرات من قبل المنطقة العربية، وقام بالتقديم إلها أكثر من 400 مبادرة، وتم اختيار عدد منها يتم تقديمها من خلال هذا الملتقى، والأستاذ أحمد هو أحد هذه المبادرات اللي تم اختيارها، فلتتفضل.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيد خلق الله أجمعين، سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أصحاب السمو والمعالي والسعادة، السيدات والسادة، الحضور الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسعدني ويشرفني التواجد اليوم في الشارقة المشرقة دوما بالعلم والثقافة والتراث، وفي ضيافة المركز الإقليمي لإيكروم في الشارقة لعرض حالة دراسية عن مشروع يحاول الربط ما بين التراث والهوية والتكنولوجيا في سبيل إدارة مستدامة وفعالة للتراث الثقافي، وهو مشروع مكان توين توأم المكان. مكان توين هو أحد المبادرات والمشاريع المنبثقة من مبادرة مكان الفكرية التي تهدف إلى إطلاق مشاريع وأفكار في مجال البيئة المبنية، التراث، الاستدامة والتحضر. ويشرفني اليوم أن أقدم هذا المشروع بالنيابة عن فريق مكان الذي يضم أيضا كل من الزميلين صفوان عبد العال وأحمد أبو نصير. بدأت قصة مكان توين في أم الرصاص، أحد المواقع الأردنية السبع المدرجة على لائحة التراث العالمي، وتحديدا في خضم العمل على مشروع لإعادة تأهيل كنيسة الأسود التي تعتبر واحدة من أهم العناصر الموجودة في الموقع. تحتوي هذه الكنيسة أسوة بعدد كبير من المعالم في الموقع على أرضيات فسيفسائية مميزة، تعتبر أحد السمات والعناصر التي ساهمت في إدراج الموقع على لائحة التراث العالمي. وكان المشروع هادفاً للاستجابة لأحد قرارات لجنة التراث العالمي حول الموقع لإعادة تأهيل الكنيسة وتقديمها للزوار، حيث أن الأرضية الفسيفسائية مغطاة حالياً بطبقة لحمايتها من العوامل الجوية. وهدف المشروع إلى إعادة تأهيلها وتقديم تجربة جديدة للزائر. وكأي عملية تدخل في السياق التراثي فإنه يبدأ بعملية التوثيق، حيث تم أخذ عدد كبير من الصور للموقع واستخدامها لإيجاد نموذج ثلاثي الأبعاد باستخدام تكنولوجيا الفوتوغرامتري للبدء العمل على المشروع. وكمهندسين معماريين مختصين في مجال التراث كنا نفكر بنوعية التدخل الأنسب من ناحية نوعية التغطية المناسبة وحتى التدخلات الترميمية اللازمة على هذا الموقع المهم. في البداية فكرنا بترميم الأقواس الموجودة إلى الجانب الشمالي من الموقع أسوأ بالقوس الذي سبق ترميمه في فترات سابقة، ولكن حوارا مع آثاريين سبق وأن عملوا على التنقيب في هذا الموقع أعاد تفكيرنا بالمشروع ككل، حيث أشاروا إلى أن هذه الأقواس الثلاثة المنهارة تعتبر دليلا تاريخيا على الزلزال الذي حدث في أم الرصاص وساهم بانهيار أجزاء واسعة منها، وبالتالي فإنه جزء من رواية سردية المكان التي نريد أن نوصلها إلى الزائر. هذا النقاش أعاد تفكيرنا بالعملية ككل، فألم تتطور ممارسة الحفاظ على التراث من الحفاظ على العناصر وعلى الحجر إلى فهم أوسع حول التراث الثقافي، فهم ينطلق من فهم المعنى والقيمة والرواية حول هذا التراث وما يمثله من معان ترتبط بنا. كما أن ممارسة التراث ترتبط بمفاهيم عدة في عصرنا الحالي، مفاهيم مثل الاستدامة وحالة الحفاظ والتكنولوجيا الحديثة ودور المجتمعات المحلية، ليس فقط في إدارة التراث وصونه، وإنما في رواية قصة التراث. فالسردية المجتمعية مسألة في غاية الأهمية، ومن هنا انطلقت فكرة أبو محمود، وهو نموذج ذكاء اصطناعي محلي صمم ليروي قصة آثار الأردن بشكل تفاعلي. وسأترك المساحة له ليعطي تفاصيلا قليلة عن هذا المشروع.
My name is Abu Mahmoud. Some call me a storyteller. Others just say I've lived too long to forget anything. But what I truly am is a guide, a keeper of memories, a friend to the stones and stories of this land. I've spent my life walking the valleys of Jordan, from the rose-red city of Petra to the quiet corners of forgotten villages. I've seen sunrises over Roman ruins, weddings in the shadow of Ottoman castles, and children dancing where Nabatees once prayed. You see, heritage isn't just in museums. It's in the wind, the walls, the way an old woman bakes her bread, or a shepherd hums a tune passed down for centuries. And now I'm here to share it with you. Click on any of the markers you see, and I'll tell you what I know.
مكان توين هو عبارة عن موقع إلكتروني يحتوي على مجموعة من العناصر، أهمها أبو محمود، وهو نموذج ذكاء اصطناعي صمم ليروي تفاصيل المواقع الأثرية في الأردن. يمكن الحوار معه حول مواضيع مختلفة ترتبط بهذه المواقع، كما أنه يحتوي على خريطة الأردن وبعض المواقع التي تم إضافة معلومات عنها. والأكثر أهمية هو المعلومات المرتبطة بكل موقع، فكل موقع يرتبط به لوحة إلكترونية تفاعلية داشبورد تحتوي على الأبحاث العلمية حول الموقع والنماذج ثلاثية الأبعاد التي تضم العناصر المختلفة المميزة في الموقع، الصور، الفعاليات، تاريخ الموقع، المعلومات البيئية وحالة الحفاظ على الموقع، بالإضافة إلى الإحصائيات المتعلقة بالسواح وزوار الموقع. وبالتالي فإن هذا المشروع يسعى إلى إيجاد منهج متكامل وشامل يشتمل على كافة العناصر المرتبطة بالتراث، ويرتكز على ركائز ثلاث، وهي النقل والسرد المحلي الذكي باستخدام نموذج أبو محمود للذكاء الاصطناعي، البيانات المكانية، والتوثيق ثلاثي الأبعاد عالي الدقة. وتبرز أهمية المشروع في تقديم أداة في أيدي صناع القرار والباحثين وكافة المهتمين في مجالات التراث، تشتمل على الجوانب العلمية والمجتمعية والسياحية المرتبطة بالتراث. ورغم بعض التحديات اللوجستية والإجرائية، إلا أننا نسعى لأن يكون لأبو محمود أصدقاء حول العالم يساهمون في رواية قصص شعوبهم وثقافاتهم ومجتمعاتهم. ويسعدنا زيارتكم لهذا المشروع في نسخته التجريبية على موقع themakan.com. وشكرا لحسن استماعكم.
Second time will be better than the first time. So I wanted to just give you a little more information about Afikra, and then we will allow everybody to be able to talk to each other and have another coffee and wrap up the day. So I mentioned the first thing I talked about was our academy, but our academy is actually the smallest part of Afikra, so I'll give you a little more information about the other bigger parts of what we do. About 11 years ago in New York, we started just on a rooftop with a bunch of friends who got together to learn about the Arab world. All of us grew up in the region, but we realized whenever we sort of convened and got together, we basically, the only time we did Arab things was either if we were partying or protesting. That was like the traditional way of engaging with the region when we at the time lived in New York. And although I'm really good at a party and I'm really good at a protest, there's like many other things that I'm also good at. And so I wanted to create a space that encouraged curiosity, encouraged community, and allowed us to sort of broaden our understanding. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about community and media, and then again, I'll answer any questions anybody has. So what we are trying to do is, as it says on the screen, is transform passive interest into active intellectual curiosity. So instead of just accepting the narrative that is given to us, we're trying to actively contribute to a new narrative. And the reason why we're doing that, which most of you, I'm sure, understand intuitively, is because the narrative that is offered to us about the Arab world is oftentimes like subtly racist or actively genocidal, quite frankly. And so we're trying to counter that and push back against that and to create a new narrative that is complex, one that has contradictions, one that is from lots of different vantage points. My history and my version of the region is going to be different than yours, and we're trying to make enough space for all of those different narratives to exist. Our values, which a lot of organizations' values are just like thrown up on the wall. We've spent a lot of time thinking about this. We value contribution over consumption. So instead of just being consumers, media consumers, actual purchasers, instead of just being consumers, we want to contribute. Instead of focusing on identity, we really focus on interests. So this is not a community, very importantly, this Afikra is not a community for Arabs. It's a community about the Arab world, which might sound like a semantic difference. It's not. It's a very important difference. And this is why we say this isn't about identity. If you are a third generation Pakistani living in the Emirates, and you are fully invested in this space, then amazing. This is for you. If you are an Armenian living in Beirut, awesome. This is for you. If you are fourth generation Syrian living in the States and you're like, oh, I don't know if my identity is strong enough, doesn't matter. If you're willing to invest in the future of this place and understand the past, then ahlo sahlo. That's how we feel about it. Curiosity over promotionalism. Afikra does not have an agenda, and we try to get people to learn how to activate and engage with the history without constantly selling agendas, and instead learn how to ask questions instead of push answers. Community over exclusivity, trying to say this isn't for everyone, but this is for anyone. And then kindness above all. Essentially, Afikra is a community of friendly nerds. And this is, we have the t-shirt to prove it if you'd like to buy it. So what started on a small rooftop in New York with about 10, 15 friends has now grown to a community of about 250,000 people globally, mostly in the region. Most of our chapters are in the Arabic-speaking world, but we have about 17 in the region and 13 in the Americas and Europe. The reach is massive. So in terms of sort of like social media reach, over 20 million, then it sort of gets down to different levels of engagement. What we think about, basically what our work is trying to push people down this funnel and say that people at the top are consumers. They're just consuming our content. Ideally, if we do our job well, we try to get them to be contributors and be people who are contributing content, contributing questions, contributing intellectual content. Most people are between 18 and 45. So while earlier I talked about the teenagers that we work with, that's a very small part. Inshallah, it will become a bigger part. What I love, though, is that there's representation across all different sort of strata. So usually when we host our events, whether they're online or in person, there's a 65-year-old sitting next to a 16-year-old, which is really fun. Okay. And what we love is that we work with, in addition to sort of a community of people, it's also a community of organizations. So we try really, really hard to have a diverse set of partners, and not only focus on the public sector, or not only focus on the education sector, or not only focus on the sort of the cool kids, really like broaden it out and say we want to work with the Lincoln Center and Netflix and the Ministry of Culture. So that's been really, really fun. I'll go through this pretty quickly. So like, what does it mean to build community? What we do is we try to, as I said, Khalil Bib Maftuh. We want it to be a situation where people can come in if they want. It's not for everyone, definitely, but it's for anyone who wants to come in the door. So we create community all over the world, and basically our theory of change here is we identify volunteer leaders, community builders, and we give them a toolkit for being able to host their own Afikra salons around the world. So there's literally chapters on every single corner of the world, and these are all volunteer powered. So we identify leaders, we train them, we give them the skills to be able to host their own events, and the toolkit to do so, and they do it beautifully. So hundreds of volunteers. So usually when people ask us, like, what does Afikra look like? I really think of this group of people. And this is like really what I think is the best the region has to offer. The toolkit that I talked about is focusing on research methodologies, presentation design, sort of understanding hierarchies of information, critical inquiry, public speaking, community building, networking, and movement building. So like when we think about the future of the region and what the best version of the Arab world, this is what we're trying to promote. We're trying to reimagine it without the strict borders, without the small confines, and trying to say we can actually reimagine this and re-network it, create a new contour of what the Arab world can look like through these people. Obviously, everything is networked online, so those communities get to know each other. When somebody moves from Sharjah to Paris, usually the first thing they do is, cool, I want to go to Afikra event. I will meet the right people there. We have a community fellowship that further trains these types of people. We do retreats around the world so that people can dive even deeper into culture and history. The last one was in New York. The one before that was in Beirut. And last year also we did a worldwide tour. And this is the first step of this is the first stop of this year's tour. So we go around, we work with partner organizations to host these types of events as well. What you see here is in Athens, in Doha, in New York, in London, in Dubai, in Cairo. Okay, Academy, we talked about Academy, so I'll skip this stuff. Media. Actually, I should have asked this who has heard of Afikra before today? Is anyone? Is this a brand new audience? Amazing. Okay, great. So most people know us for our social media and our podcasts. That at this point is like the largest way we reach people. So our podcasts, we've published over 700 of them. They are largely interview-based. The way we think about this is we are creating a platform to ask the people who shape the way we think about the region about their work and their perspective. So whether it's Ihkili talking about literature, Matbakh talking about food, Kawalis talking about film and television, Quarter Tones talking about music, Tijara talking about economy and business, Inside the Arab Classroom talking about education and pedagogy. There's a lot. The flagship the series is called the Afikra Podcast, a very original name. But that's what you find on there. And the idea is like really to broaden the room. The joke I always make is that usually when people think about the Arab world, they imagine like a airport bookshop, you know, those ones that only have like 2 shelves. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make them realize that it's like the Library of Alexandria. It's just like rows and rows and rows and rows of titles. And so that's what we do. Our social media, you should check it out. It'll do a better job of telling the story about us than I'm doing right now. So you can look up our Afikra Podcast account for all the podcasts, Afikra Academy stuff for all the academy, Afikra Community for all the community account. Or if you just look up the main Afikra account, you will see tons of stories about the region. Daftar is our journal, which features original written contributions from some of the leading thinkers in the region. Our first published book is coming out in December, which is a collection of essays that really tries to push the boundaries of the histories and cultures of the region. So you can check out Daftar. And our digest, our Daftar Digest is our newsletter that goes out to, I think that number is wrong. I think it's over 30,000 readers. And I think we try really, really hard to feature organizations' work. So if your organization is publishing things, hosting events, doing anything that you think is related to the history and culture of the region, please let us know. We have a form on our website where you can just upload your openings and your exhibitions and your book publishing so that more people can find out about it. Yeah, this is like big picture what we do. And essentially what we're trying to do is publish and create a new narrative. So I think I'll stop here. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any. And if not, then I'll just open it up and we can go grab a coffee and get to know each other a little more.
مساء الخير وشكرا جزيلا على العرض. دائما ما يعني تكون بهذه المشاريع أنا كنت أسأل أستاذ أحمد قبلك وأنت نفس الموضوع على فكرة استدامة هذه المنصات وكيفية أولا هل هي بدأت بدعم أو بجهود ذاتية وكيف من الممكن استدامة هذه المشاريع لأنها تحتاج بالتأكيد إلى ميزانية وعمل. شكرا جزيلا.
So I think there's a couple different levels. There is individual support and individual engagement, which I hope everyone does. I hope everyone realizes, if anything, Afikra is a movement, and we think of ourselves as a movement. And so, if anything, this is a call to action to move. So, so please get involved. Sign up for the newsletter, listen to the podcasts, show up to one of our events, raise your hand to say, I want to contribute, write an article. There's a million ways to get involved. That's on an individual level. I think everyone, has a responsibility to do that. On an organizational level, we work with tons of organizations. So if your organization is one of the organizations that is interested in the histories and cultures of the region and telling a broader story, telling a more complicated story, is interested in trying to engage with the public, let us know. We work with every organization up here, and we help them with public programming, we help them with podcasts, we help them with course design, and so that type of work is our mission. So that's the easiest way to answer this question. Is the best way of supporting us is to work with us as an individual and as an organization. What else? Should I tell a joke? Okay, go ahead. يلا جاي.
Afif, I have a question about Al-Fikra, about the history, especially the history part. Who validate the topic or the theme presented to the audience? You talk about different tools and methodology how to deliver the message or the concepts
Yeah.
of your organization or of your platform to different youth and different countries, different categories. But like from my own perspective as archaeologist or doing science of culture, for example, how you can select the topic for the history? What is your resources? How you present it? How to make the information validate and reliable for the audience?
Great question. A huge part of it is a curatorial challenge. So for the podcasts, I interview people. So I'm not presenting them. Does this have internet? Yeah? Can I? Okay.
Yes, we need just one example. How
I'm going to give you examples at the same time. There's going to be a live thing. Ready? Okay. Okay, let's look at this together, okay? Okay, so for example, this episode, okay? Professor Noubar Hovsepian wrote a book about Edward Said, and I came across his book, or you know what, I'll just show you on YouTube, actually. That's probably even easier. Any of these, for example. Okay, so Abdul Rahman Sulaiman. Okay, here's a great example. Nadi Abu Saada, historian based at AUB. Okay, he's talking about the 1930s art exhibitions in Jerusalem. He wrote a book about it. I came across this book. I started reading it. Very fascinating. I said, amazing, I want to interview you about it. So a huge part of it is a curatorial challenge of like finding people that I personally want to interview. The reason why it's called Afikra is because I'm literally saying, Afikra, I didn't know that. That's the whole point, right? And it's a very important reason why it's not called Ala Fikra. It's called Afikra on purpose. Because Ala Fikra is obviously the correct way of saying it. Afikra is the vernacular way of saying it. And I'm trying to actually have this be a casual conversation. So if you go through these, you'll start to realize that essentially a huge part of the work that I'm doing is a curatorial exercise in saying type, okay, Nasser Rabat is one of the greatest academics who focused on the region alive. So I'm going to platform him and say, I want to talk to you about this, about your work. And I'll ask you their questions and then kind of get out of the way. Does that make sense?
So usually you're based on the academic, let's say, academic resources, teachers, lecturers.
Yeah, so, I mean, let's just take a look at this. So, art, hip-hop, philosophy, history, literature, pop, Palestinian pop music. These are both Palestinian pop music. History, art, food, film, migration studies, Islamic art, trade and migration, new media, Kamen migration studies, mental health, Palestinian sort of legal rights, Al-Ghazali, Syrian political history, art, pop. There's a lot of stuff. And to give you a perspective, there are literally over 750 of these. So part of the work is, it's a marathon. Part of the work that we're doing is to say, this doesn't stop. You actually have tons and tons and tons of questions. This is Abir. This is Abir from earlier today. Does that make sense? Yeah, تفضل. ما عم بسمع.
على فكرة أنا لسه ما عرفت على فكرة، لكن شكرا جزيلا، هذا جهد مقدر. فقط في استفسارين. من اللي بدأ على فكرة؟ كيف بدأت الفكرة؟ وما هي الرسالة التي يراد أن توصلها على فكرة؟ وإلى أي مدى من تقييمك على الأقل الشخصي أنتوا قطعتوا شوط إيجابي، وإلى أين الرسالة لبعضنا البعض عن المنطقة العربية وإلا إلى جمهور آخر؟ Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, شكرا.
How did the idea start? This is the first question. How did the idea start? Okay, I'll tell you the sort of shorter version. But I used to be a school teacher, and I taught in New Orleans, and I mostly taught kids who grew up in pretty poor backgrounds. And one of the kids, I left New Orleans, I moved to New York, and he was obsessed with New York. And I told him at the time, you should watch the show that's about the 1920s in New York. It's a great show. You should watch the show about the 1920s. He said, شو بدي في ال 1920s? No, I like New York now. And I started I scolded him. I said, this is your problem. You're not curious. You need to be curious. You need to learn about the 1920s. This is a huge education for you. And you need to expand your horizons. And you need to, if you say you love this place, you need to learn about the history of this place. And he said to me, Tab, how much do you know about Beirut in the 1920s? Because he knew I was from Beirut. And I realized I don't know anything. I didn't know anything about Beirut at the 1920s. New York, I know even without studying, I know the fashion of New York in the 1920s. Fashion of New York in the 1920s. I know the economic history. I know that there was a Great Depression. I know the crime history. I know Al Pacino. I know the Yankees. I know the music, jazz. I know the architecture. I know the food. I know the migration studies. I know so much about New York in the 1920s. It's insane. And I didn't even live there. How do I know so much about this place 100 years ago, and the city that I grew up in, I know nothing about the 1920s. I don't know how we dressed. I don't know how we ate. I don't know what we listened to. I don't know what we read. I don't know what we watched. I don't know how the migration happened. I don't know anything. And forget Alexandria and Cairo and Khartoum and Sharjah and Muscat and Bahrain and Kuwait. I don't know anything. So for me, this was a huge embarrassment. Huge embarrassment. And so I realized if I say I care about this place, if I say I'm invested in this place, then why am I not taking care of my investment? How do I not know anything about this place? The word interest, the reason why it's one of our core values, interest over identity. The word interest, I think, is an amazing word in the English language because it's obviously interest, intellectual interest. I find that interesting. But it also means there's a financial idea. When you have an interest in a company, you own the company. When you have an interest in land, you own the land. So if we have an interest in the Arab world, we own it. We have some sort of stake in it. So how do we not know anything about our investments? We don't know where we came from. We don't know where we're going. We don't know the story of any of our neighbors. It's embarrassing. عيب. So I turned to my friends at the time. One's an architect, one's a banker, one's a musician, one's a teacher, one's an engineer. Saudi, Egyptian, Palestinian, Lebanese, Moroccan. Do you know anything? No. Do you know anything? No. Do you know anything? No. Should we fix this? Can we get together and try to learn a little bit? Beyond the basics, beyond the nostalgia. we all have the nostalgia. We all are given the basic story. That's beyond the basic story, beyond the first scratch. And so this is why it started. It started like, can we dig a little deeper? Okay, you know Ibn Battuta. You've heard the name. Do you know anything about beyond him? Beyond Ibn Battuta? Who's the next guy? You don't know anything about the next guy? Yalla, let's do a little work. So that's how it started. Does that answer the question?
So far, yes.
So far? Whew. The second question, what is my message? Right? I think this is my message. My message is that if you say you care about this place, you should do some work. You should invest in it. Usually we say, we need to question the narrative about the region. The West is saying this, the West is saying that. We need to re-question the narrative about the Arab world. Okay, great. What's your question? If you say you want to question the narrative, ask a question. And the question can be any question. The question can be anything. The question can be, let's look. The question can be, let's look at any of the library. It can be about architecture. You can say why does Jadda look the way it does? The architecture of Jadda, why does it look the way it does? Why? Let's just look through this. You can ask questions about when did we have? Let's look through any of this stuff. Yemeni coffee. This is a great one. Okay. Okay. The story of coffee in Yemen. How did it go from Mocha to Istanbul? How did it go from? Why is Nespresso a thing? How did we go from Mocha to Nespresso everywhere? It's a good question worth asking, right? What was Edward Said really like? Everybody knows Orientalism. They have it on their bookshelf. What was his actual problem? Did people in the academy really like Orientalism when it first came out? What did the Orientalists actually think about Edward Said? There's so many questions worth asking. And if as a society and as a region, if we're going to start actually reclaiming and reframing the story about ourselves, we need to do some work. We need to start asking questions, learning from each other, listening to each other, not based off identity, not based off what passport you have, but instead based on your actual work, your actual investment. How much do you care about this place? So that's the bigger picture. Yeah. Did I pass the second one too? Yeah? Amazing. What other questions are there?
Somebody at the beginning would think that you are trying to deliver a message to the other, not to the people from the region.
I'm so glad you said, no, my audience is the people from the region.
Well, it's very necessary if they don't know anything, as you said.
Yeah.
To learn about themselves, about the region.
This is very much a to us, for us, by us, from us. This is all about the region. I'm not trying to tell the West, look how beautiful we are. I don't care. I actively don't care. What I'm trying to say is we collectively need to look inward. We collectively need to understand what this place was so that we can protect the best parts of it, so we can understand the worst parts of it, so that we can learn from each other. I think about it as a party all the time. I like parties. If you have a party, how do you get people to come inside? You have to have a good time on the inside. If people look in the window and they say, wow, these guys are having so much fun, they'll come inside. Nahna, on the inside, we need to understand what we're doing. If we have a rich story and a cohesive story and we're publishing stuff that is excellent, people from Japan and people from Chile and people from Canada and people from Sweden, they will all come and want to learn. We don't need to tell them how beautiful we are. So it's definitely for us, for sure. That's how I feel.
Excellent.
Yeah.
في بعد مبادرات؟
خلص هاي آخر شيء وهذا آخر سؤال.
آخر سؤال. الحمد لله.
بتضمن منين انه الضيف اللي قدامك في البودكاست هتبقى طريقته اتراكتيف وهتقدر تحافظ على نفس الاودينس بتوعك؟ يعني مثلا الدحيح ناجح قوي ليه؟ عشان هو طريقته هو بيجمع داتا كتيرة جدا أكاديمية وصعبة قوي قوي، بس هو بيعرف يلقيها بطريقة سلسة وسهلة. انت ازاي بقى هتقدر تحافظ على ده وانت النهاردة بتقدم واحد أكاديمي؟ وطبعا مع الأسف كتير من الأكاديميين ما بيقدروش يوصلوا المعلومة بطريقة سلسة. وبكرة هتعمل لقاء مع رابر، فالرابر هيبقى طريقته سلسة وهتوصل. انت بتكنترول ده ازاي؟ يعني كتكنيك بتعد طريقة معينة لصياغة الأسئلة وإن أنت تدير الحوار نفسه، بتعرف تكنترول ده ازاي؟
Have you watched any of the episodes? Okay. So are you asking me if I'm able to do it? How I do it? Well, first of all, you have to tell me if I do it. Maybe I don't, maybe I fail. Maybe I fail. So you have to, I try to ask questions that are first principles. So the way I imagine it in every interview, I imagine that I'm at dinner, or usually what I tell them is I'm at an airport lounge. I'm at like my gate, okay? Or I'm sitting in the plane. And I turn to the person and I say, "No way. You're the Sudanese rapper. I just listened to your album. Amazing. I have so many questions for you." All right? So I try to start there. Like I just listened, I just read your book and there's things I didn't understand. Like here's a really good question. Have you ever noticed that usually in the Q&A part of most conferences, they're not questions? Have you ever noticed that? Like somebody stands up and they give a talk, right? Which is fine, but they're not questions. They don't have a question mark at the end. There's no question mark. Usually, so in my interviews, there are questions. And I'm not faking it. It's because I actually don't know the answer. Like if I ask a Sudanese rapper, tell me about the hip hop scene in Khartoum right now, it's because I don't know the answer. If I ask somebody, was Ghazali overrated? It's because I don't know the answer. I want to know their answer. If I ask somebody who wrote a book about Moroccan political thought, if I say to him, it's called Moroccan political thought, like, are these geographic borders? Are they nationalistic? Did these people believe in the nation of Morocco? This is from 600 years ago. Why is it Moroccan political thought? Does it bleed into Algerian? Does it bleed into Spain? Or is it the idea of political thought beyond borders? And a Moroccan political thinker could actually be based in Germany. And it's like an esoteric idea. Is it a philosophical idea or is it a geographic idea that merges these people together? Right? These are all different types of questions, but they are born out of an actual curiosity. The reason why I do that is because I'm modeling curiosity. I want the people listening to this to say, "على فكرة والله, that's a good question." Right? Thanks.